Individuals went to the Supreme Court this morning to challenge the constitutionality of the newly signed anti-terrorism law. To tell us more about what happened, we have Dale De Vera joining us live from Manila. Dale, how many petitions have been filed so far?
Sean, at least four petitions have been filed before the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the newly signed Anti-Terrorism Act. All four so-called early birds are also asking the High Court to issue a temporary restraining order against the ATA. A lawyers and civic leaders group led by Professor Howard Calleja and former Education Secretary Armin Luistro was the first to physically file a petition before the High Court Monday morning. They say while threats to national security need to be addressed, the controversial law is crafted to be, quote, oppressive and inconsistent with the Constitution. The group initially submitted an electronic filing on Saturday. They seek to void at least 11 sections of the law, including the supposed vague definition of a terrorist. Meanwhile, Albay Representative Edsel Lagman also went to the Supreme Court this morning to question the legality of the entire terror law. He's the first lawmaker to file a petition against what he called a law replete with constitutional infirmities. Filing the third petition on Monday are four Eastern University law professors led by Dean Mel Santamaria, who argued that the government should focus on addressing the current health crisis instead. The group adds the ATL is feared to stifle academic freedom, as even legitimate criticisms against the government could be tagged as terrorism. For its part, the Makabayan Bloc in the lower house filed a fourth petition against the law just before noon on Monday. Sean, four other groups are expected to take their petitions to the High Court in the coming days. Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara welcomes the filing of these petitions. He said the court's ruling will guide the DOJ and the Anti-Terrorism Council in the preparation of the law's IRR. Sean?
All right, Dale, exactly what do all these petitioners want the Supreme Court to do? They want to obviously stop this law from happening, but what are the next steps exactly? And can you give us a timeline of how this will go down, at least with the matters pending before the Supreme Court as well?
So it will all actually depends on what the Supreme Court en banc will do or what their next step will be, because the Supreme Court en banc may have to ask the respondents to comment on the case first before it may schedule the oral arguments for the said petitions. Son?
So I guess what actually everybody wants to know, Dale, is when do we hear the petitions? Will there be a schedule? Any idea? Maybe in a month or two? Will they, fast track this at all? Or can they also issue a TRO on this law before it actually enacts?
Yes, Sean. Actually, they may have to wait for the respondents to answer or comment on the petition before the Supreme Court may act on it. But if we recall on other petitions, oral arguments may have been set at least a month or 2 months after a petition has been filed. Sean?
All right, so you mentioned there still are about 4 other groups that will be filing petitions in the coming days. Any idea who they are?
So at least 3 human rights groups, including the National Union of People's Lawyers and the PILC and the CLCL, will be filing petitions against the ATA after its implementation, as well as the group of former Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio is also expected to file to question the legality of the new law before the Supreme Court. Sean?
All right, thank you very much for the updates. Dale De Vera joining us live today from Manila. And here are other stories we're keeping our eyes on. The Philippine Coast Guard has filed criminal charges against the officials of the Hong Kong-flagged MV Vienna Wood. The accused are facing charges of reckless imprudence, resulting in multiple homicide and damage to property in relation to the sea mishap in Occidental Mindoro last week. PNP Chief Archie Gamboa gives the PNP Internal Affairs Service 15 days to dismiss 2 Ilocos Sur policemen over their alleged involvement in the rape slay of a 15-year-old girl. The Ilocos Sur Police earlier filed murder charges against police senior sergeants Randy Ramos and Marawi Torda. Hundreds of scientists from various countries are urging the World Health Organization to look into the claims that COVID-19 is airborne. This is according to a report by the New York Times. The WHO has time and again dispelled claims that SARS-CoV-2 is airborne. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao, and we are One News.